Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we watch not just the first episode of a show,
but also the second. Some shows don't have the best pilot episode, and giving it that second chance might just change your mind.
Here, we take that chance for you and let you know our opinion on if a show deserves more than one shot.
I'm Justice. Alongside me is my co-pilot Josh. Now, let's get ready for takeoff. Your in-flight entertainment this time will be Suicide Squad Isekai. Yeah, that's his actual name. They just straight up called it Suicide Squad Isekai.
I honestly thought the show was called The Suicide Squad Gets Isekai'd.
Honestly, it sounds better than Suicide Squad Isekai.
I mean, at least the title tells you exactly what it is.
I mean, technically, but arguably you say that word to me, and it implies more to my brain, at least in the structure of it, that it's not the Suicide Squad getting Isekai, it's that someone has been Isekai'd to become a member of the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, like the time I got reincarnated as Yamcha.
Yeah, basically. Like, the title Suicide Squad Isekai implies to me that someone from, like, normal world gets Isekai'd into DC and is forced onto the Suicide Squad team.
So, before we dive into the show, obviously, Suicide Squad, one of DC's superhero teams.
Yes.
That was, I did quotations with my hands.
Yeah.
On superhero, because they're not superheroes.
Yeah.
They're all mostly villains.
One of DC's meta-human teams.
They're not even all meta-humans.
Yeah, but people consider the Justice League a meta-human team as well.
There's
and they're
no
all meta-humans.
I think there might be an equal number of meta-humans across the Suicide Squad and Justice League.
I think the majority of the Bat family is technically at least provisional members of the Justice League.
I think if we just look at the core teams, they have roughly the same number of meta-humans.
I mean, no, because the Justice League is mostly aliens and one normal person.
Yeah, but like core team for Suicide Squad is like Deadshot, Harley, Killer Croc maybe, Clayface maybe, Katana.
Enchantress sometimes.
Enchantress. Is Enchantress a metahuman?
She's possessed by a god. See, the fun thing here is that sometimes DC, in their own writing, is unclear whether or not they consider people with magic to be metahumans or not, because it's...
I think if we're just counting
like Lex Luthor would say they're not metahumans, but world governments sometimes will say they are metahumans because
I think
they have powers normal people don't.
Between like Killer Croc, I guess between Killer Croc, Clayface, the guy that can set himself on fire. But like those are all like maybes, so like...
Yeah, I mean maybes is kind of the whole Suicide Squad thing.
Yeah, and then like there's Flash. That's like the one like for sure metahuman on the Justice League. So I think like really kind of balances it out. A lot of the Suicide Squad is just humans who can do stuff good.
Yeah, but if we looked at their fleshed out, like larger extended webs, the Justice League has a lot more non-metahumans. Just because I think technically most of the Bat family have provisional Justice League membership. Because like most superhero teams have provisional Justice League membership. Especially if the guy in charge of the Justice League security system is your mentor.
I think there was just a canonical Batman Justice League run where because Batman was out of commission due to the robot that was Batman's secondary conscience from another world.
Oh, yeah.
The Bat family were taking turns pretending to be Batman for Justice League meetings.
Nice.
So, in that case, yeah, they're all definitely provisional because, like...
Yeah.
But no, like, we got into Suicide Squad Isekai primarily because I decided to hurt myself in a very, like, Josh manner of hurting myself.
Yep.
That is... I decided I was going to watch the entire Arrowverse at least up until the end of Arrow.
Is that how we got into this?
Yeah, we were watching that and you were like, Suicide Squad Isekai is a thing. We could watch it, like...
I mean, that's not... I didn't mention it because you were watching Arrow. It probably, now that you say it, is because you were watching Arrow. Google just pushed it into my Google News feed at some point.
I thought it was because of my Arrowverse venture.
No. It probably is because Google listens.
Do you know how many episodes there are in the Arrowverse up until the end of Arrow?
Up until the end of Arrow? Mm-hmm. Not over 1,000.
It's 548. I'm 92 episodes in.
Nice.
I need to watch 9 more episodes of Constantine, and
Constantine's dope, though.
And I think 4 more episodes of Flash.
Honestly.
And I'm on to phase 2 of Arrowverse.
Honestly, Supernatural just should have ended when it was still good. That way Constantine didn't have to compete with it, and Constantine could have then taken over that Supernatural niche that people had going on, and we could just have had more Constantine.
I don't have any, one in my heart that's for Supernatural to have ended.
No, neither do I. I was being somewhat facetious.
I personally think it should have ended after season 5. That was, the
agreed.
Perfect point. But I think because of, the fans and, how much success it was.
Yeah, just how big it was.
It makes sense to continue. I really do feel like it really hurt Constantine as a show.
Well, yeah, we were talking. There were, 2 episodes. One that we both, thought was completely a Supernatural episode at first. We were like, I remember this being a Supernatural episode.
Yeah, the one with the oil mine, the coal mine.
Yeah, and then the next one, I knew it was a Constantine episode, but there were elements that existed in a Constantine episode that I recall last time I rewatched Supernatural. I was like, I thought some of these elements were in that episode, and thus when I watched the Supernatural episode, I was like, what the fuck am I thinking of? And then that Constantine episode started, and I was like, oh, it was this. That's what it was from.
So there are 548 episodes in the Arrowverse up until the end of Arrow.
Yes.
But there are I say roughly because the last season of the last show in the Arrowverse isn't out yet. But counting that last season, there's roughly 830 episodes of television in the Arrowverse.
Okay.
I don't think I'm watching the extra 300.
You should.
Especially because, a large portion of the extra 300 is Superman and Lois, and it's not actually part of the actual universe that is the Arrowverse.
Yeah, but it's got Teen Wolf alum.
What?
It has Teen Wolf alum.
Oh, yeah, Tyler Hoechlin?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually, the compelling part to watch that show.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said it. That's why I said it out loud. So replant itself in your brain.
Yeah, so we watched Suicide Squad Isekai, which, again, terrible name for a show.
Yeah. Honestly, there had to be a better name.
But that's the show we watched, and it features the characters you think it features. But we start specifically with the Joker and Harley Quinn.
Yes, and they are robbing a bank, presumably?
I guess so. And we're cutting between this and an Argus facility.
Where Amanda Waller is doing Amanda Waller stuff. She is scientist that she's commanded to do something. We don't know exactly what it is. They're just being told to up the levels, stabilize the science procedures, that way things happen correctly.
And one of the scientists goes, we can't up the levels any further. It's going to hurt her.
And Amanda Waller, being Amanda Waller, is like, it's not a person. It's a tool.
Who do we think that is? Do we think they used Enchantress to bust the portal, or?
No.
Who do you think it is?
Anime original character.
Fair enough. Like Adam.
See, I have an answer that I would have given if they hadn't just said her. I probably would have said, Harold or something, but even then, Harold uses his Gabriel horn to make portals.
Oh, yes.
And shoot sonic blasts.
Harry, I know him.
Mal Duncan is Harold. Come on. I mean, there is a Harold who is a Herald. I think one of the ones in I can never remember the name of it because the name is dumb. The future Booster Gold era superhero team.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but vaguely.
League something or other.
I'm mostly aware of Booster Gold.
The Legion of Heroes?
Sure.
Some shit like that.
I'm mostly aware of Booster Gold as in his relation to Blue Beetle in the present day.
Oh, fair. But I believe that one's name is actual Harold or something. But
that's
does
funny,
not matter.
And I was just making a joke because they sound the same.
Yeah. No, Mal Duncan was originally the Herald and then becomes Guardian later.
Yeah,
Mal Duncan is fucking great, man.
So, Amanda Waller's doing Amanda Waller things and effectively torturing somebody to do her work because that's what Amanda Waller does.
It's literally her entire directive as given to her by the U.S. government.
Joker and Harley blow this place up that they're robbing, steal a bunch of money, and escape in Joker's Joker-mobile.
Yeah, I think I know why Amanda Waller is having them crank the machine up actually, even though it might harm the person. And it's because she has to use so much of her money for torture. It's part of her discretionary budget, so if she doesn't use it, they'll just cut her budget, and don't want that.
So getting back to the Joker-mobile.
Yeah, fair.
Because it's the most insane anime vehicle I've seen in a really long time.
Dude, it's just 60s Adam West, Batman, DC shit.
Oh, no, yeah, visually, you're right. Visually, it's just a 60s Joker.
Yeah.
But it's controlled by a piano.
That's still 60s Batman stuff shit, man.
Which also means the music in this scene
is diegetic.
It's completely diegetic.
Yeah.
And it's it's got Batman-y vibes to it. Which, there's another point where I have to point out Batman-y vibes in music later. It's just very noticeable Batman vibes.
So Joker and Harley are driving through the streets of, I assume, Gotham, away from the cops.
Probably Gotham.
And
although, for some reason, my brain assumed it was Japan, just because everybody's speaking Japanese.
Fair, I guess. So...
Sorry, my brain does that. If you don't tell me where the location is, my brain goes, oh.
Wherever they're speaking the language predominantly of.
And I know it's an anime, so, like, I know it's, like, in Japanese because it's an anime.
Yeah. So, being the fact that it is Joker and Harley, they don't really care about the money portion of the whole, we kidnapped people, tied them up, and had fun blowing them up when the police got there. To cause a distraction to lose the police, they cut the bag of money to, like, draw people into the streets to grab it. It kind of works. Harley does spend a bit of time chucking weirdly smooth, like, fushigi-looking balls into the air and hitting them with her baseball bat, but they're bombs. But they look like fushigi balls.
They're fushigi bombs.
Honestly, you've sold me on it. That's Joker branding. Yeah, he'd do it.
I love the idea of Joker body juggling these balls, and then Batman's like, what are you doing? And he just goes,
Fushigi,
catch.
Yep.
So after they have evaded the police, Harley pulls a handbrake.
Yeah.
The car spins to a stop in front of a bar. And she's like, I'm gonna go in, but you don't come in just yet. The alcohol tastes better if I'm waiting on my lover. Also, Harley is fairly well done. She seems like Harley. Yes. Joker seems like the Jared Leto Joker, but like edgier.
Honestly, he's kind of the cookie-cutter, misanthropic protag hero of an isekai who's just like, man, the world sucks. It's all bad, and it's cruel, and it's mean, and I wish I could go somewhere else. To which, you know what? Yeah, Joker in the comics a lot is like, yeah, the world is cruel, and it's mean, and it's fucked up. That's why I love it.
He honestly reminds me...
That's the vibe he has normally in comics if he's a misanthrope about the world, but not this one. Also, he has either a tattoo or face paint of a Joker smile over his mouth.
And God, do you hope it's a tattoo.
I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
Honestly, he reminds me a lot of not the Kira who works at a corporate office, but like the Kira with glasses and black hair and
yeah.
Like that Kira when Kira is not being Kira, when Light's not Kira, but when he has like two other Kiras.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
He reminds me of that guy.
Yep.
This world's so terrible. That's why I'm going to kill people for Kira.
Yeah.
Yeah. This Joker would have fallen in with Kira so hard.
Yeah. But Harley pops into a bar and is like, hey, bitches, who's happy to see me throwing money in the air? No one responds, and it's actually pretty dead fucking quiet. And she's like, where's the funeral? Who died? No one responds to her, so when she walks by the bar, she asks where some guy is, and the bartender's like, oh, called in sick. So she gets her drink and leans in and goes, that person doesn't work here. There's no one here by that name. So then she yells out to Joker, calling him Puddin', because she will repeatedly call him Pudding-chan, that...
Wait, is she actually saying Pudding-chan?
Yes.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Not to come in because it's a trap.
And then she proceeds to beat these guys up. And then Joker proceeds to drive the car into the wall of the building.
Yes. And then Harley jumps out of the building, but not into the car. Car takes off, and Harley climbs up on top of a building and starts to run across the rooftops.
Until she gets intercepted by Katana.
Yeah. I got some problems with Katana's design as well.
Is it that the anime eyes makes the mask's eyes hole way too big?
It does. It throws off the whole proportions of her mask. Like, just give her the mask and put slits where the eyes are. Like, 3 or 4, like, thin vertical slits. Because you're not supposed to see her eyes. That's supposed to be part of the intimidating part about her. Also, what's with the, like, shoulder cape? And crop top. It's
barely a crop top. It's more like a sports bra.
Yeah.
Like, everything below her breasts is exposed.
Basically.
And it's annoying. Like, I understand we've reached a point in the comic book world where Harley Quinn's default mode is fetish-sized.
Yeah.
Which I really blame Margot Robbie's. Like, not her. I don't blame the actress.
The costume design and production of that Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I really blame that Suicide Squad movie for a lot of it.
Other than that, it goes to, like, the Arkham video games, kind of.
Yeah.
But those weren't as bad.
Yeah. But we don't need to do that to Katana. Katana doesn't, like...
No. The majority of Katana's character is, man, I'm kind of stuck with this cursed sword that I don't want to get rid of, though, because it has my husband's soul in it.
Yeah.
But also, man, is it terrifying and horrible to have a sword that has my husband's soul in it.
Yeah. So, Harley and Katana fight across the rooftops. She starts with her baseball bat, but eventually gets disarmed from that and pulls a pipe off a wall.
Yeah.
While this is going on...
And then gets disarmed of that.
While this is going on, Argus is successfully busting a hole into another world.
Yep.
And as they do so, a remix or I guess a piece of music inspired by the Snyderverse Justice League theme.
I think it is that. It's just a redo of it because this is a Warner Brothers Japan production.
Yeah, like it's definitely a piece of music heavily inspired by and taking parts of that into it.
I literally think it's actually like a remix of it. I think it is using that same exact structure. So I wouldn't even say it's like
I think it's an original piece of music though. Like even if it's a remix of it, it's an original piece.
Yeah, No, I understand. I think just the way you were phrasing it initially made it sound like it wasn't necessarily using that piece in it.
Oh yeah, no, it's not just the themes and motifs. It's like the actual like full-on piece of music.
That's
like,
what I was trying to get at.
It's been broken into different segments within the song, so it's not like the full-on like Justice League theme.
Until like one exact like string of it, at the height of it.
But I will point out, it was at this moment while watching the show, I looked at Justice and went, there's no way Harley Quinn should be keeping up with Katana like this. And then Justice made the very astute observation. He was like, yeah, unless Katana's trying to capture her alive. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's actually totally fair. My bad.
Yeah, Katana only ever works for Argus now. Doesn't matter what media, she just works for Argus.
So that was my bad, because Katana was an Argus agent capturing Harley Quinn. They were also trying to capture the Joker, but they failed.
Yes. So then we cut to 6 months later, where, well, actually, Harley gets captured, thrown in a room real quick, and they laugh about her being captured and talk about how they're going to get the Joker, and she's just like, that's not happening. And then we cut to 6 months later, where Amanda Waller is walking into the most maximum of maximum security wings of Belle Reve prison, all while being harried by the warden of the prison. She's like, you don't need to go here, it's dangerous, you don't need to mess with these people. Like, it seems really bad, and everything goes wrong with whatever your plan is, it's going to look really bad for me.
And she's like, well, you know what would also look really bad for you? The fact that the medical supplies that come in...
Well, not just medical supplies, all of the supplies that are coming in.
The supplies that come into Belle Reve don't match the paperwork for the supplies that are being used and exiting Belle Reve. And that's been the case since you took over here. That would look really bad for you. Mm-hmm. So if you want that to be public knowledge, keep harassing me.
Yeah. So the guy, properly cowed, follows Waller's orders and leads them into where Harley's at, where she is in her nice, safe, padded room with a giant glass window, stretched out in a hammock watching some show that on the screen I couldn't tell if that was a very large rat or a very chubby beaver.
I have no idea what she was watching. What I do know is Amanda Waller orders her out of her cell, and as she's being taken out and handcuffed, the warden's like, I've treated you so nicely, don't you owe me a thank you? And she doesn't take kindly to that. So
yeah, he like roughly grabs her face and turns her to look at him.
And so she kicks him with like a full-on soccer kick in the dick.
Yep. And then is immediately like, the only person who gets anything from me, bodily or romantically, is Joker, because I love him.
So she is thrown in the back of she is eventually thrown in the back of like a helicopter.
Yeah.
But we can't actually tell it's a helicopter here. It's some type of like transport.
Yeah. No, instead, right after this, we are introduced into the basic idea of Waller's plan when the warden's just like, what? And Waller's like, I have a plan. Throws like an iPad down, not actually an iPad, some form of data pad, and has pictures of Harley, Deadshot, Peacemaker, and like, I think we see 4 faces or 5 faces. We see the Suicide Squad on it. And he's like, that's crazy. And she's like, sometimes you gotta be crazy, you gotta do crazy things to change the world.
And then we cut to them in the back of a transport. And in the back of the transport is Harley, sitting next to her is Deadshot, who is obviously Deadshot. They don't introduce the characters right away, but like...
If you know Suicide Squad, you have a pretty good idea of who's gonna be who.
The guy across from Deadshot is a very pretty man talking about being an actor, so he's obviously Clayface.
Yep. And then the other one has a bag over his head, so if you know people with weird mental things going on with masks...
It's Scarecrow. Bag over his head.
And it looks like a paper bag, not a burlap sack. Can't be Scarecrow.
But
he's got a paper allergy.
No, specifically he's...
You're right, he's terrified of paper.
Specifically, he's like, I have to hide my face to protect the mission. My
I have a noble cause.
My identity being revealed could harm the mission, could harm the noble cause. And
it's Peacekeeper. It's obviously Peacekeeper.
Peacemaker.
I don't fucking remember his name.
It's Peacemaker.
I'm aware.
He had an entire show that was a hit, starring John Cena.
Yeah.
Because John Cena is Peacemaker.
Fair enough.
And they also have in the transport with them an Argus agent who just is like, God, I hope that's not Rick Flag. And it's not Rick Flag. It's Adam.
Like, the guy's character, like, art design was very much not Rick Flaggy, and I went, don't be Rick Flag.
But it's not Rick Flag. It's a man named Adam, which Justice immediately went, oh, he's disposable. And then the helicopter crashes.
I was like, I don't know any Adams in the DC who work for Amanda Waller. Well, besides, like, no. I was going to say besides, like, maybe a few heroes, but I also actually can't think of any hero that's named Adam that's been stuck with Suicide Squad shit.
But the helicopter crashes. Adam's dead. End of Adam.
They do get told right before it crashes, they are given the crash course on, hey, you have bombs in your neck, they will explode if I want them to explode. And also, if you don't receive a radio signal within 72 hours, they will also explode.
They're also told that there's 5 of them and Adam.
Mm-hmm.
And right before the helicopter crashes, Harley goes, where's the 5th one?
Yeah, and Adam's going to be ready to say something when they crash.
Mm-hmm. And they've crashed on a floating island in the sky.
In a chain of floating islands.
Where a group of orcs and pigmen are fighting knights on horseback with magic weapons and magic. There's also a dragon that flies by.
He does not seem to be involved in the battle. That was just our first real introduction to the fantasy scene, because Harley looks out the door of the helicopter and just sees sky, and then there's a dragon. She steps out and immediately falls because they crash right on the very edge of this island.
Deadshot grabs her and pulls her up, because if this is like any other Suicide Squad run that features both Deadshot and Harley, it's going to be a will they won't they romance. But
the answer is they won't, because it's Harley Quinn.
And because Deadshot only has room in his life for one woman, and that's his daughter. Because Deadshot's a good father, damn it.
Yeah. It's really more of how long until they stop hating each other and are actually like the bestest of friends. And then when are they no longer good friends because one of them betrays the other? So
they all get out of the helicopter and they're immediately surrounded by pigmen.
Mm-hmm. And they're all like, what the fuck is going on?
Clayface thinks they're on a movie set.
Mm-hmm. And as they start to get surrounded, Deadshot's like, this isn't a movie set. That smell, you can't fake that.
And as they're getting surrounded, out of the back of the helicopter comes King Shark.
No, not at first.
Not at first, you're right, sorry. No. I'm just excited for
As
King
they
Shark.
cement the idea that it's definitely not a movie set, Clayface goes, wait a minute, I know what this is. Oh, I've been so tired of the boring mundanity of the real world and its horrible scripting. We've been isekai'd. And when he says the word, because he's explaining there in a different word, he's like, but modern world, because he makes a reference to Alice.
Yeah.
Wonderland. And he's like, but in popular culture, I'd say we've been isekai'd. To which Harley asks, what is that? She literally said the word isekai.
In the monologue at the beginning.
In the monologue at the very beginning of the episode, when she was diegetically talking during this robbery to a guy whose like gag had fallen off.
So then the fight begins, and then King Shark comes busting out of the back of the helicopter, and me watching the show goes, yeah, King Shark!
Yeah, yeah, you do. And then we get characters splash screen introductions, where we see them in their hero outfits. Well,
they're full-on costumes.
In their costume outfits, but they are not actually wearing those. They are all still wearing Orange Bell Rev jumpsuits.
I just want you to know, King Shark is the brightest spot of existence in this entire anime. Like, I don't care what else this show does. Agree. Because throughout the entire fight, we get, like, action shots of Clayface, action shots of Harley, action shots of Deadshot, action shots of Peacemaker, and in the background of all of them, just
not in a way, it's just eating people. And we have like 1 or 2 action shots of him where he's like punching people or throwing them, but most often he's in the background of other shots just eating people.
Eating people whole. He like picking them up and going, rah, rah, rah.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. King Shark is the highlight for me. Mm-hmm. Holy shit.
So during the entire fight, Deadshot's trying to figure out what their leader is, because they're like, oh, we should just take out the leader. He's definitely close by. So Deadshot finds him, goes to line up a shot, but gets blocked by people.
So then Deadshot does some acrobatics, jumps off a tree branch,
lands on top of the helicopter, gets on the helicopter blade, which then has way too much flexibility to have been a functional helicopter blade, because he bounces the fuck up off of it like it's a diving board, but a cartoon diving board, because diving boards also don't have that much bounce either in real life.
And in midair shoots the Pigman King or Pigman leader in the head.
Yeah.
And then the pigmen scream and run away.
See, I don't know if they're pigmen or not, because they say the word orcs, but we see other things that look like more traditional fantasy orcs. So I'm going to call these ones pig orcs or porks.
Well, the 3-eyed monster in the gel later calls himself an orc. So I assume these are not orcs.
Mm.
But specifically, important for me here, after the fight, as everybody's gathered around, a little fairy-like carnivore, like scavenger thing comes by to like start eating on a body.
It looks like an Ojima from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, but with fairy wings.
Yeah. And it's just like...
Ojama, right? Ojama Trio?
Yeah, Ojama, yeah.
Yeah, it's not an I, it's an A. My bad.
And it's just like a vulture, essentially. It's like coming to pick down on the... And while the rest of the Suicide Squad is talking about what they're going to do...
and King Shark are just eating dead bodies in the background.
And then King Shark starts chasing it around. Mm-hmm. King Shark is the highlight. Oh god, is King Shark the...
So these knights who we'd gotten a brief cut to earlier when they saw the helicopter crash make their way over to where the Suicide Squad now is, and they don't speak the same language.
And Clayface tries to come up and like use
brute force. He just tries to brute force it. It's like, if I say enough words and make enough hand gestures, surely they'll understand that they need to take us to their leader.
And the leader of the soldiers draws his sword and goes to attack Clayface. Deadshot shoots the sword out of his hand, and then the guy says magic words and the sword flies back into his hand.
His bracelet glows, and then the sword flies back into his hand. An important note, though, when we saw Clayface use his powers earlier, they got an orange glow around them, and he did make a note about his powers being stronger here. Which, because Clayface is a metahuman on a genetic level, at least in the DC Comics, it implies to me that whatever causes magic in this world is actually just expressing on the genome structure that the humans would have that is their meta powers and is strengthening them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Which is also why his powers can get repressed in the next episode.
But when that happens, Clayface and Harley are both like, wait, was that magic? Is there magic here? And then we cut from this scene to all 5 of them in a jail cell.
Yep. And they're like, what? And that's basically the end of the episode. We then cut over to where we see Katana in like a very fantasy style, like garden atrium in a mountain, and someone's talking about people from a different world. Seems to be addressing Katana, and there's like 4 figures around her, but we don't get to see who those are.
No, but there is a big dude who my first thought was, ooh, Mammoth.
Yeah, I assume it's King Croc.
Yeah.
Not King.
Killer Croc.
Yeah, no, my brain combined King Croak and Killer Croc.
I was really excited because it looked like he had like fur, and I was like, ooh, Mammoth. Mammoth getting some screen time.
Mammoth, I think, has been a part of the Suicide Squad as of like past few years. I think he actually ended up in one of those.
But no, not Mammoth. Probably Killer Croc, because Killer Croc's in the Wikipedia and has been cast.
Yeah, I mean, I saw what looked like a gas canister or some compressed air canister of some sort with a nozzle on it.
We know the other ones are Enchantress and Ratcatcher from the Wiki, right?
Yeah.
Not
and
as
Thinker.
Fun. Oh yeah, and Thinker.
Though I knew Thinker was involved because we'll see him in the next opening.
Yeah, in the opening.
But,
so that's the end of the first episode.
I was really hoping for a Scarecrow or maybe a Firefly. But anyways, yeah, that is the end of episode 1 of Suicide Squad Isekai. What are your thoughts on it, Josh?
For me, I don't know if this is like my game, like my type of thing initially, just because isekais in general are not like my flavor of tea, but I do like DC Comics and I do like Suicide Squad stuff when it's done like not by Snyder. Plus, King Croc is probably the most fun I've had watching a DC property in a long time.
Fair enough.
And that comes from a guy who's binge watched 92 episodes of the Arrowverse recently. Flash is bad, guys. The first season of Flash is so bad. You have no idea. You probably do. Most of you have probably seen an episode of The Flash. Maybe.
It's not great.
It's season 1 is so bad. King Shark is like giving me DC love again.
Fair enough.
I would watch, because there's only 3 episodes out right now. I would watch more specifically because King Shark and because there's only 3 episodes right now.
Fair enough.
That's where I'm at. How are you?
See, I'm in a similar boat. There's only one more episode to watch after this to see if I would enjoy it, really. By the end of the first episode, I'm not a huge fan of any of the characters' characterizations, nor am I against them.
That's because you specifically hate dumb King Shark.
I don't hate dumb King Shark. I just like smarter King Shark more. The one who is naive to the surface world customs, but is a fucking prince of an underwater kingdom.
I love dumb Nanaue. Like, when he's just a straight-up killing machine idiot, I love him.
Is it because that version of King Shark has runtime in some Hellblazer comics, and I'm just partial to Hellblazer stuff? Yes, it is. I'll readily admit that. It's also why one of my favorite Suicide Squad movie things to date so far has been the animated Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, because it doesn't directly deal with Constantine, but we do bring up the fact that hell exists, and the entire purpose towards the end is that they're actively trying to get a fucking free pass from hell. Amanda Waller wants it. In the end of it, Deadshot ends up getting it. But because that's an actual fucking thing that exists, because Constantine has had one on more than one occasion.
Yes, but I love dumb Nanaue. I know he's not.
By the way, depending on what the writing or continuity of it is, a normal term for it's a hell pass.
That's beautiful.
I figured you would enjoy the fun.
But would you watch more?
Yeah, probably. The animation is actually really good for the most part.
Oh yeah, the animation's super crisp. Like the largest complaint I have is I have 2. 1, the Joker.
Yeah.
And 2, this fantasy world is very, very generic.
Yes, my next base complaint also deals with this fantasy world, and we'll see it really in the beginning of the next episode. The map they have is CG rendered.
Oh yes.
And the way they have the lights hitting it makes it feel very, like, out of place in my opinion. Like, they gone with a more matte finishing on the thing before they exposed it with the light on the 3D render.
So that brings us to Suicide Squad Isekai Episode 2, which you'll notice I'm not giving episode names because they don't have episode names.
I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of, like, American companies for shows, especially their animated ones, that are more aimed towards adults, like the big ones, they don't seem to want to give those episodes names.
Which is really weird because live action shows all get names.
Yeah.
And have for decades.
Yeah.
Every episode of Friends has a name, and it has a naming convention to go along with it.
Yeah, they only break from it in, like, the final season.
Like, the fact that it's been in English, the fact that it's been a naming convention for TV shows for decades.
Yep.
It annoys me because I love episode names.
I know you do.
Partially because, like, I like figuring out why the episode's named that way, like what the theming there is.
Yeah.
Or
if there is a theming.
Or I like seeing, like, the literal, like, jokes that the creators of the show put in the title. Like,
and even the boring ones were just a one sentence summary of the episode.
Yeah.
Or a 2-word summary.
Or, like, even like
a topic statement. The topic statement is what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even like in Taskmaster, where every episode title
is just a random fucking quote from the show, and it's just like, I need to know where this came from. What's the context of this weird fucking quote?
Like, I love that stuff, and the fact that this doesn't have episode titles hurts me in my soul in a way that you, listener, in a way that you, passenger, cannot possibly hope to understand. Anyways, episode 2 opens with a carriage being drawn through a town
where the people in the town are trying to flood the carriage because they are poor and starving.
And begging for food.
But there are, of course, armed officers of the law of the kingdom stopping them from getting close with their grubby peasant hands.
Because ACAB is true even in a fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right, Kelsier?
The carriage is floating, which is neat.
So in episode 2 we were talking, I don't think a fantasy world gets to count as a fantasy world, especially in animation.
Yeah.
Unless there's floating islands
somewhere in the world. You know what? You don't have to fucking show me them. Just let me know they exist.
And this show has floating islands and floating carriages.
Yep.
And it's all good. That's all good. I like that. Yeah, the Queen Aldora is heading to the palace because she has a meeting with her cabinet.
Yes. So from there, we kind of just go to the cabinet meeting.
And the leader of the knights from the previous episode,
who is named Cecil, we learn in this little interaction,
because he's from Final Fantasy, is also part of the cabinet.
Yes. And we see 2 men in stuffy, weird, like, fantasy approximations of, like, Victorian-style clothing, but with more flair.
One of them is named Professor Port.
Very much looks like it. Are talking about throwing a feast in honor of the victory that they just had. And a victory that was entirely due to the Queen being on the front lines to bolster the morale of the soldiers.
And Cecil takes umbrage with this. He's like, we can't throw a feast. The people are starving.
And they're just like, do you think the Queen doesn't deserve a feast? Do you think the soldiers don't deserve a feast?
They also specifically go, who cares about the peasants?
Yeah.
They're not the ones we're celebrating.
Yeah, and Cecil's immediately just like, I don't even care about that. What really matters is there were these people who turned the tide of that combat we were just in, and I think we should do something about them. And then he and the other 2 are cut off by the Queen, slam on a staff on the ground, being like, shut up.
Yeah. Cecil specifically is like, first, he's like, we should get their armaments and use their armaments.
Yes.
They single-handedly turned the tide of the entire fight. If we're not going to use them themselves as weapons, we should use their weapons as weapons.
Yeah, because he's like, I put them in the big prison on the hill over there. It's literally on a mountain in the distance that we can see later from this castle. Because I couldn't understand what they were saying, so they were foreigners, so they go to jail.
And they kind of watch footage of the fight. I say footage, but it's like magic scry portal.
Yeah.
Like, they watch footage of the fight, and the entire time they're watching footage of the fight, the princess, who is sitting below her mother in this...
is enamored every time Harley pops up on screen. Also, their character designs are very similar.
They're gonna princess and pauper this shit at some point.
I was thinking the same thing the moment I saw the princess show up on screen.
100% gonna happen.
Even before I saw her being, like, enamored of Harley Quinn, I saw her character design, and I'm like, we're princess and pauper in this shit. Okay.
Yeah, and at some point, Fionn...
willing or not on Fion's part.
And at some point, Fionn, like, interrupts the meeting, and she's like, we should use these people. We should try to converse with them and use them. They helped us win this fight.
Yes, she specifically says this because when Cecil brings it up and the Queen interrupts, the Queen's just like, ignore those people. They do not matter.
And Fionn's like, but they do, obviously. And then the Queen's like, shut up unless you have something relevant to say.
Do you have any information to support anything you're claiming? She's just like, no, I do not.
And the Queen ends the meeting by being like, all of you have to have individual plans for the next battle by the time of the next cabinet meeting, which is highly inefficient and doesn't make sense, but all of you bring me individual battle plans. And then she smacks her staff on the ground, and the lights turn on.
Yes.
Because she's got clappers.
Yeah. So then I believe from here we go back to the prison briefly, where technically we go to Harley's dream sequence real quick.
Where she's being interrogated by prison guards about the location of the Joker.
Yes.
Which, A, she doesn't know, and B, she wouldn't give up if she did.
Yeah, because they're mocking her first because she had a PhD, and she worked at Arkham, and she was a well-respected therapist, but she fell in love with the Joker. Man, she must be pretty dumb. Ha 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 ha. She's like, can't be dumb with you guys couldn't even make it to be actual fucking cops. So then they flip the table on her and stun her a few times.
And then she wakes up in the prison cell.
Yep. And Clayface, after they sit and talk for a bit, and Peacemaker's just like, oh yeah, we have like exactly 60 hours before we all die, by the way.
He is keeping track of every literal second.
Yeah, they're talking, and at a point he goes, 3, 2, 1, we have 60 hours left. And they're like, wait, what? He's like, yep. So Clayface decides, I got this, guys. I'll get us out of here. This is the perfect moment for my spot in this role to take over as the hero here. It's the prison break moment. It's going to be spectacular.
Actually, before we get to this, because this is important, you're right.
Yeah.
Before we get to this, can we have that conversation we had earlier?
Sure.
How the fuck does Clayface have a bomb in his neck?
So this Clayface has full Clayface powers. When I first saw him in the helicopter, I immediately knew he was Clayface because it was obvious because we started with Harley and then we saw him and he immediately said actory things and he was the only one wearing glowy technology bits, which means they're suppressing a superpower.
Like, I assumed that that obviously if Clayface was Suicide Squad and they had a bomb planted in his neck, his powers were limited to changing his face and augmenting his hands and arms and maybe feet.
Yes.
But this Clayface can full-on Clayface.
Yeah.
Like, become a giant sludge monster made of clay.
Now, I don't know for certain. I think he's been a member of the Suicide Squad before, being able to like go full clay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they handled it. I would assume they handled it in classic DC fashion, which is instead of like neck bomb, hey, congratulations, you have nanites in your body. You have enough. They all have a blow up payload. You will die no matter what.
Because like if he is Clayface with a neck bomb, he could just turn full clay, pull out that chunk, put it in like a finger, pull that finger off, and throw it at an enemy.
Or drop it off a sky island.
Or leave it in the prison cell.
Yeah.
Okay, back to him walking through the prison cell bars.
He walks through some prison bars.
Because he's literally made of clay.
Mm-hmm. We see from an angle from just his feet as he's walking down the hall, where he's going off about how dramatic of a moment this is going to be. And Harley, just to frustrate with the shit, starts yelling about him escaping to draw the guards.
Yeah, because he's not like being useful. He's like, I have to make this dramatic.
Yeah, because he could turn his hand into a key and open their door.
And then, while Harley is yelling for guards, Peacemaker reaches through the cage
and grabs Clayface and pulls him back against the bars. And she's like, nope, I can tell you're going to be useful for the mission. I can't let you go off on your own like that. You'll get in the way of the cause.
So the guards show up and they slap some cuffs on Clayface. And the cuffs stop his metahuman powers. Because his metahuman powers are magic.
Yes, because their magic are metahuman powers.
And then they throw him back in the cell.
Yes, they do.
Well, not really. They open the cell and they demand everybody come with them.
Yes.
But we're going to cut back to a different scene because
we are back with the Princess Fion.
And she is using a magic eyeglass to look out at the peasants?
No, she's not. She's using magic opera glasses.
Sorry, yeah. She's using magic opera glasses to look out at the peasants who are fighting over a loaf of bread because they're starving.
Oh, it also has mold on it. There's a giant gray spot on it.
Yeah. And she has a nice plate full of beans and toast and something else, ham it looked like.
Soup and like some form of meat.
And then Cecil walks in and he's like, you summoned?
And then like, he sees the food. He's like, are you not eating again? You have to eat. Just because you aren't eating the food.
No, he doesn't say, are you not eating again? He says, are you still not eating?
Yes. He's like, just because you're not eating it doesn't mean the peasants are going to get it. He doesn't say it that bluntly or rudely.
Yeah, he kind of does. He's like,
you
not eating doesn't feed the peasants.
Yeah. He doesn't say it as bluntly or rudely. He says it with a bit more decorum, but still pretty obvious.
And she asks him about the Suicide Squad's weapons, and he's like, even our best technicians couldn't understand their weaponry.
Well, she asks him about having them fight for them, and he's like, well, I don't know if that's a good idea. She's like, you literally said something about it. He's like, no, I said they're armaments. To which our best technicians can't even figure out.
And then she emphasizes that she really wants to talk to that girl, quotation marks, because she's talking about Harley. And she's like, we need to convince him to join forces with us because it'll help us end the war faster.
I have something I want you to do for me.
Which, I don't think the Queen wants the war to end.
Oh, God, no.
I don't know why, but like that's that's why she doesn't want these people involved.
On an important note, probably going forward in the show, not that it matters for the rest of this episode at all, when Cecil gets shot down by the Queen Queen does give us a brief idea of who Cecil is in importance. He was a hero who helped save the kingdom, fight off the big evil, got special armor from the princess, and from the way his interaction is going with Princess Fiona and possibly with the Queen, I don't think he got this armor from... This is my own personal thought/opinion here. I don't think he got his armor that made him super powerful from Fiona, especially because he looks older now.
And he's not wearing that armor anymore?
I think he probably got it from Aldora?
Or like Aldora's sister, or like another daughter who's dead now or something. Fair enough. But then we cut back to the prison.
Yes.
And
it's lunchtime.
The guards take the Suicide Squad to lunch.
Yes.
But they can't get King Shark to wake up, so King Shark gets to lay in the cell asleep.
Yeah. So they are all sitting at a table, complaining about how the food looks gross, and trying to figure out what they're going to do.
They did a really good job of making it look gross, because it's green and it's got like this fatty shimmer on top.
Yeah, it looks like oil.
Yeah.
Like an oil spill.
But as they are trying to eat and just have a conversation, a group of ogres come up to them.
Yep.
And they can't understand each other, but the large leader of the ogres is demanding they move because they're getting their human stench everywhere, and this is his table.
Yeah. So Deadshot goes to handle the issue because he's like, oh, I know what's going on. Harley's like, wait, you do? And Deadshot's like, it's a prison. They're always the same.
All prisons have the same rules. Toughest guy in the yard.
But he gets stopped by Clayface because Clayface is like, no, I got this. I can understand what they're saying by reading their expressions and body language.
And Clayface proceeds to bumble the entire thing. Like, at one point the ogre goes, Are you wanting a fight? Is that what you want?
Yeah.
And Clayface nods and he's like, yes, the guards do suck.
And the guy's just like, oh, this human's mocking me. So he just right hook right into Clayface's face.
And like the ogre has set a bowl of soup down on the table.
Yes.
And after he hooks Clayface and knocks him across the room, Harley grabs the ogre's bowl of soup and just drinks it all. Not because she likes the soup, but
power play.
Specifically because she's like, oh no, you don't get to fuck with us.
And then the guy goes to grab it, doesn't find it, looks at Harley, just stares at her, and then she starts laughing maniacally. And then the Suicide Squad, Sans, Clayface, and King Shark beat the fuck out of this group of...
The Suicide Squad composed of mostly normal humans.
Yeah.
I think technically Peacemaker's a super soldier, but I'm not for sure.
Yeah.
They don't just beat the crap out of this one ogre, they beat the crap out of a bunch of ogres.
Yes, and some other of the inmates are snitches and get the guards to bring the wands.
And remember, ACAB, even in a fantasy world.
Mm-hmm. So the guards use their wands, which create an image of a rabbit, which then creates a seal symbol of some sort, or magic circle.
So the rabbits just like jump kick the people, and then there's another spell that like makes platforms.
Well, they like jump kick the air, creates the magic seal that I think is the same one that then platforms down on top of people.
And just holds them in position.
And there's like a weird snake thing that lifts them up in the air first, and then they get pushed down.
It's weird magic stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
But anyways, then the squad, including King Shark, are moved to the punishment cells, which just look like smaller cells.
They're like maximum prison solitary cells, but they put multiple people in them. The best part, though, is two guards are just carrying a sleeping King Shark down the hallway, because he still hasn't woken up, and they just went ahead to go get him from the other cell.
And they're like, your friend's fucked up, so you're getting punished too.
Yeah.
But they get thrown in the cell, and somebody goes, oh, you speak my language. You must be from the other world.
Yeah, because they are commiserating that shit has happened, and they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Clayface?
And this is Rick Flag.
Yes, and it looks much more like a Rick Flag, I would imagine.
And they have a brief conversation here. Rick Flag's like, oh, so you must know about the bombs. And Peacemaker is specifically like, yeah, and we only have 58 hours to get back into radio signal before they explode.
He's like, wait, what? He's like, oh, wait a minute. Waller didn't call reinforcements. She took this seriously. And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, you weren't the first ones through. I came through with an entire squad like months ago.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'll help you guys get out. Which is funny because if he could get out, he obviously would have already. Mm-hmm. No, the person that helped...
And they catch on to that, and he's like, well, if you need a signal, you need where the portal is to get closer so the radio signal can come through, and I can lead you there.
And they're like, okay, well, whatever. And then Clayface
Not
goes,
like whatever. Harley calls him on his shit.
Oh, yeah.
And no one else mentions it because obviously they do need him. And then King Shark wakes up.
Yeah, then King Shark wakes up.
And he's like, I'm hungry.
I smell blood. And
so they all immediately cower against a wall.
And he comes up and he's sniffing on them. And Rick goes, not away. And King Shark stops. And they're like, what? And they're like, and Rick goes,
it's his real name.
And he goes, not away. If you're hungry, there's food out there.
On the other side of that door.
And King Shark looks at the door, looks back at them. and then walks over to the door.
And headbutts it, free from its spot in the wall.
I love King Shark. He also proceeds to beat down the first guard that shows up.
Mm-hmm. And they all go to run off, and Clayface is like, no, hold up. And they all still fucking stop for a reason. After everything Clayface has done in the short time they have known him, why would they stop to indulge him in anything?
Because specifically, out of the entire Suicide Squad crew here, King Shark might be the physically most powerful, but the most versatile and actively useful for multiple scenarios is unfortunately Clayface.
Not that he's been any of those things, but he runs back over to the guard that Nanaue took out, grabs the keys, and unlocks his cuffs, which is a weird cube with energy coming out around it to create the handcuff portion of it. We didn't explain that earlier, but it falls off, and then he's like, now for the finale.
The prison break. And he sends off a whole bunch of clay keys from his body.
To which he can't normally control the clay when it's not attached to his body. But he makes a bunch of them for all the cells down here, and unlocks all of the cell doors, and starts speaking, trying to create a dramatic scene to encourage all of the prisoners to riot.
Which he didn't really have to try to create a dramatic scene, because prisoners kind of get it once they see what's going on.
Peacemaker starts shouting and flexing his muscles, and he's like, what, did they fucking,
take away your will to fight? Take away your fighting spirit?
I mean, he also asks if they were neutered.
Yeah.
If they took their balls.
Yeah, but he also specifically
he also mentions their fighting spirit and such, yeah.
Yeah, he specifically asks about their
But he has to put in the thing about their balls, though, because Peacemaker is, in the comics, classically kind of misogynistic.
Toxic masculinity.
Yes, that is who he is. That is what his powers come from. His powers are toxic masculinity.
You know what we didn't talk about? And I'm just reminded because this next scene is like, got music and lights and stuff. We didn't talk about the OP. Because episode 2 has an OP.
It does, you're right.
You want to talk about the OP? Because this is the part that I wanted to talk about where it has real Batman vibes.
Like the OP is fine.
This OP has Batman vibes underneath the entirety of the music.
There's literally a bat at a point that's flying across the screen.
It's also very jazzy, and I like jazz music.
Oh yeah, it goes pretty fucking hard.
It goes hard, but visually it's very slow-paced.
Visually it's also a lot darker than the show has proven to be, because the Isekai world that they're in, besides specifically this prison so far, has been mostly pastel colors.
Mm-hmm.
And like, other than, so our first person we're introduced in the OP is Harley Quinn, and obviously she has some bright colors, but like, it's still a darker shot. The next character we see is Deadshot, from a low angle, dark at night, in his full Deadshot outfit, and it just looked like dark and kind of gritty and grimy. It's such a different vibe.
I can't tell, though, if, like, the reason why the animation for the OP felt slow to me was because of an animation choice, or if it's because of the music. Like, normally OPs feel like they go by faster than this did.
Yeah.
This one kind of feels like it drags. Not a bad thing, necessarily.
We do see some other people in it. We see the Isekai people. We see Amanda Waller. We see some of the other villains. Can't make most of them out. One of them is Thinker. Guy who has helmet with bright green vials on his head, and he uses them to make his mind powers stronger.
Yes. Anyways, back to the breakout, which is done in disco lighting with music in the background.
Yes.
And they are
just murdering these fucking guards.
It is a montage of murder.
Yeah, we see bits and pieces of everyone doing things their way and doing it pretty well.
And in the background, bringing me joy,
is King Shark just eating people. And then, like, 75% of the way through their breakout/massacre of the prison guards, we get 2 comedic bits that get added into this. Mm-hmm. Harley opens a door to a closet, sees a mop, her face lights up in joy, and then we cut from her to a little bit more fighting, and then we go over to Clayface, who is dancing around, swinging his arms out in clay, while there are like 10 to 12 prisoners behind him dancing in time.
Yes.
And then we cut back to Harley, who has also requisitioned inmates, and they have used the mops as paintbrushes to graffiti the wall because she works with the Joker, and graffiti is like their favorite crime to do, on top of anything else you could think of.
It is the opposite end of the scale of tax fraud.
Yeah.
No, this scene is amazing, and like, I don't know why King Shark eating people is so fucking hilarious to me. I think it's like partially like how he's holding them and their legs are kicking, and it's just a funny image.
Yeah, they don't go for any of the like super gruesome ones. Like there's obviously those are gory and gruesome, but they don't go for any like the super bad ones.
I noticed
because there's one point where he picks someone up and is holding them sideways and goes to bite, and we change from the scene so we don't see him bite into someone's midsection.
I noticed in the murder montage there was a distinct lack of blood anywhere.
Yeah, for the most part.
Like this is distinctly a TV-14 show, and they're steering away from blood and gore. Mm-hmm. Not a bad thing. The DC comic books ostensibly are a property for quote-unquote kids, teenagers. So it makes sense. You want it to be marketable to kids.
Yes. So then we cut to Cecil in a wagon with some soldiers as they are headed towards the prison.
To do the princess a favor.
Yes.
And they get to the prison.
And he sees a giant flag graffitied hanging up outside, and he's like, what? And then we cut over to the Suicide Squad, who are all on top of the wall hanging out with all the inmates, drinking ale or grog or whatever the fuck they have in their mugs, mead, prison wine.
And laughing and having a good time.
And then Harley sees the carriage and she's like, looks like we have company. I guess we'll have to take care of this.
Also, I guess we should mention that during the murder montage and the prison break, Deadshot, who doesn't have his guns, is just
flicking pebbles.
Deadly flicking pebbles.
Yeah, he never misses anyways.
Yeah.
And as they all kind of cheer and then look at this carriage, Rick Flag, who is pushed up between two different ogres, is like, we don't have time for this. End of episode. And then we get an ending, which is alright, like animation-wise, but I know you are quite happy with the ending song.
I am very happy with the ending song, but I will say the indie animation, it does fall in like the top 10 weirdest things I've ever seen in my life.
There's so much Amanda Waller
dancing.
Strong posing, like just striking strong poses, like model poses.
And dancing.
Fierce poses, I guess. Fierce posing is the word I actually want. And dancing.
Amanda Waller dancing is not something I ever imagined. Yeah. It's never been an image that entered my brain until this ending.
Yeah.
But the ending theme is by the only one of two VTubers I actually give any cares about.
Yeah.
One being Iron Mouse. Mm-hmm. This song's not by Iron Mouse. No, this song is by More Calliope.
Yep.
She's a member of Hololive English Myth.
Yeah.
She's a musician. She's got a new album coming out later this year. But this is a new song by her, and it's very good. It is
quite good.
It's called Go Getters.
Yes.
And it's a banger. It's a fucking banger.
But having watched both episodes, I can distinctly say I still feel the same as after episode 1. I still don't feel strongly about any of these characters in particular.
Yeah.
King Shark is still fine. The Skyworld still doesn't have anything going for it that intrigues me, really. I'm their magic doesn't intrigue me.
No.
I'm just confused about its visual, portrayal.
So Deadshot has no character.
No, he hasn't gotten to talk much. He's just been arguing with Peacemaker on occasion.
Peacemaker is definitively Peacemaker. It's a good Peacemaker.
Yes.
King Shark is fucking hilarious.
Yes. Clayface is Clayface, which is fine.
He's overly annoying,
They've gone with the over-the-top Clayface, much more similar to the Harley Quinn animated TV show.
And then...
Which, it works there fairly well because it's a comedic TV show, right?
And then I'm not a fan of, Harley in general. In comics, we've moved past this Harley Quinn.
Well, the thing is, this is kind of a hybrid of the Harley Quinns, because this isn't, desperately dependent on Joker.
No.
This is a Harley who seems to be capable of being, independent and handling herself.
I just don't like specifically some of her dialogue. But it cringes me so hard.
But is still overly in love with the Joker to a level that is kind of cringe.
Mm-hmm. It's just some of her dialogue is distinctly very cringe-inducing.
Yeah.
And I wish we didn't have to deal with this Harley Quinn in 2024, because this isn't the Harley Quinn that is the comic book Harley Quinn anymore.
Yeah, I saw a brief. So when I originally saw this when I originally saw this existed, in the article there was a thing from the director, and I did read it. And the director, she was like, "I've seen the recent Suicide Squad stuff, and I've seen her be horribly in love with the Joker. I've seen her be strongly independent. I've seen all the stuff, and she's like, and I want her to be independent and strong of her own, but also be in a relationship with the Joker. But
also the Joker is money, so the more time we can have him on TV, the more money we make."
That's honestly my opinion. And then...
I hate to be the guy, but that's what it is.
Oh, it's also the whole... It's popular media, and Japan is stricter with their portrayals of sexuality in media.
Yeah.
So,
But also, Joker means money.
So, I honestly don't know. It's 2 episodes so far of Harley, and she seems somewhat independent, but also she has been in a jail cell. Well, she's been with the Joker. Immediately can't trust any of that to actually give a good portrayal of her. She's been in a jail cell. She's been handcuffed in the back of a helicopter. She's been allowed to fight on a battlefield with orcs, and has been in a jail cell.
Yeah.
And has been allowed to fight on a battlefield with orcs. Not against them this time, but still with them.
Really? She's made almost 0 character progress.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you much about how she's doing.
Yeah, so I think what we're saying is, if this concept intrigues you, you'll have to watch more.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch the 3rd episode at some point, just because there's only 3 episodes. And
apparently premiered with 3 episodes, which, honestly, fair. After these 2, they went by fairly quickly, because there's not a lot going on.
Yeah, and I think the music of the show has been very good.
The music has been good. The animation has been fluid. Overall, I would call it a mid-anime, not bad, not good. It exists.
It's actually what I saw Reddit saying. Reddit was specifically DC fanboys are going to watch it and eat their popcorn.
Yep.
Isekai fans are going to watch it and be like, cool Isekai, bro. And then your average anime fan's going to be like, it was mid.
Yeah, it was another Isekai. Most of them are mid.
And that's where we come down on it, I think.
Yeah.
But outside of the Suicide Squad Isekai, I think that's going to be it for this flight.
I think so.
If you want to reach out to us, because our plane did not crash into an Isekai world like that helicopter, and you want to join us on future flights, you can find links to the podcast, links to our email, links to our Twitter, our Blue Sky, our YouTube, our Discord, our Patreon. You can find all of those in one tidy place.
And that place is copilotsreview.simplecast.com.
And if you have any to find us...
quandaries, thoughts, opinions, words to share.
To find us individually outside of the website, you can do so at Copilots Review for our Twitter and Blue Sky, or copilotsreview@gmail.com, which is honestly the best place to reach us.
Anyways, though, thanks for flying, and please fly again soon.